My lady and I were trucking around just stoned as hell in the middle of July. From the looks of the road we were going down, there was just no way to tell that in the winter it had been cold enough around here for folks to die. About 9 o'clock that night, we rolled into a little old town called Vandalia, Illinois. And that's where we met a strange old man that I like to refer to as Coal Shovelin Roy. It was an old antique building called the Eakin Hotel and had a happy old man at the desk, and I could see by looking he couldn't see me too well, but it looked like a quiet place to rest. Now, me and my lady have no desire to be married, but for the old man's books we had to be Mr. and Mrs., and all he could think of the rest of the night was chasing her around, pestering her for kisses. The lobby was a closed-up coffee shop. We gathered there around a table, and in the corner the TV was showing a baseball game because the hotel had just gotten cable. The old man on the desk sat down to talk, and he said he'd just retired from the Army, and because of 2 bad marriages, and his eyes were failing now, he was working part-time instead of farming. All this time, old Hunchback Roy kept mopping the floors in a way that you knew he was listening, and I kept noticing the scars on the backs of the old man's arms, and it looked like to me that his eyebrows were missing. Now, he seemed like he was a hard-working man, and you knew he was pretty old, and we got to talking about what a hard winter they had had and how the hotel had kept from freezing up 'cause Roy had stayed downstairs in the basement shoveling coal. Now, me and my lady had never seen a coal furnace or a coal room in our lives, and so we asked Roy if he'd take us below and show us where he'd spent the cold winter nights. Well, it tickled him so that anyone cared to see what he'd done for a living that you'd have thought we'd have asked him to show us his heart, and he was excited and mighty pleased to take us on the first tour he'd ever given. He tucked in his shirt, and he laid down his mop, and he grinned as he came to the table, and he shook both our hands in such a hard grip that I knew he was ready and able. He said, "You know, the winter in '76 was bad, but not as bad as January '77. I spent the winter right into spring in hell, so folks upstairs would think they was in heaven. Now, I've shoveled coal for pert near 50 years right here without no help, and this past winter was the coldest I'd seen in that coal room. Why, it was hotter than hell. I can't remember the number of trucks that drove up, but it come to 67 tons of coal altogether, and the owner of this place damn near went broke because of this terrible weather." With that in our minds, we got up and followed the old hunchback to the furnace below, and thoughts crossed my mind as I listened and I watched as Roy took us down to see the coal. "Now, over here is the room where they dump all the coal, and through there is that great big furnace, and it would get so hot when I'd open the door that eventually the skin on the backs of my arms would start burning. You know, I went through all this pain so those people would stay warm up there, and not one of them ever looked me in the eyes and acted as if they ever cared. You know, it's men like Roy, the coal-shoveling fool, that's kept this country alive. And it seems to me we owe 'em a lot of thanks, because if it weren't for them, none of us would ever survive."